you think of mud, this is probably the first thing that comes to mind. But here, we're not talking about that kind of mud, but rather this kind. It may look like mud and feel like mud, but it's definitely not mud, as many of us may know. What we're talking about is drilling mud or drilling fluid. Most of these drilling muds are complex mixtures of chemicals with either a water or oil base. They're specifically formulated for each well. If handled properly, they're powerful tools that can be used to drill wells in a safe, efficient, and environmentally responsible manner. However, if not handled properly, these muds can be hazardous to you and the environment. A wide range of drilling muds is used to drill oil and gas wells. Some are water-based. Others are what we call emulsions, that is, liquid mixtures formed by blending water with either refined petroleum oils or man-made synthetic liquids. Okay, let's try a question. True or false? Oil-based mud is the same as the mud found in your backyard. The answer, of course, is false. Oil-based mud is a specially formulated emulsion containing some potentially hazardous chemicals. Oil-based mud is made by mixing diesel oil with water. Other chemicals, such as calcium chloride, lime, wetting agents, barite, and clay are added to the emulsion to stabilize it and help it perform its important functions of removing cuttings and controlling pressure within the well. Like we said, oil-based muds can be hazardous if handled improperly, but with proper handling, they can be used safely. This video will show you the hazards involved with oil-based muds and how to protect yourself by avoiding mud contact, selecting and using the proper personal protective equipment, practicing good skin care and personal hygiene, and properly laundering your work clothes. Not all jobs on the drilling rig require exposure to the mud, but the potential for some exposure is always present. Jobs such as tripping pipe, changing shaker screens, repairing pumps, running mud tests, and adding chemicals to the mud system. All of these activities usually require high exposure or repeated exposure to the mud. The chemicals in oil-based mud can give it some undesirable properties. Do they make it A, irritating to the skin and eyes, B, difficult to remove from clothing, C, irritating to the respiratory system, D, all of the above? The answer is D, all of the above. In addition to its base fluid, oil-based mud can contain chemicals that make it irritating to the eyes and skin. In fact, the very physical and chemical properties that give oil-based mud its good drilling performance also make it difficult to wash off the skin. Oil-based mud is also difficult to remove from clothes. If not laundered properly, mud residue in clothing can cause skin irritation. In the area around the shakers, mist and vapor from oil-based mud can irritate your respiratory system. Now let's look at how you can protect yourself from many of the irritants found in oil-based mud. The first rule of handling oil-based mud is to avoid contact. But if contact is necessary, you can minimize the amount and the length of contact. So how can you minimize contact? Through some general good housekeeping practices and the use of some special equipment and procedures, such as OD and ID pipe wipers while tripping, mud bucket, vacuum system and absorbent pads to clean up mud spills, slower connections to minimize mud spills, rotating floor hands to allow time to clean up, and in hot weather, remove personal protective equipment and cool off. Boot washes are also very effective in reducing slips and keeping all rig areas clean. Another thing to remember, oil-based mud is very slippery. So use non-slip surfaces on the rig floor, around the shakers and mud pits, and on stairs and ladders. All these are good ideas, but every rig has slight differences. For that reason, it's important to use these suggestions to develop your own safe practices for your individual situation. Again, avoiding contact with the mud is best. But when it's unavoidable, you should pay careful attention to selecting and using the right personal protective equipment, or PPE, before contact occurs. And equally important, good personal hygiene after contact. In addition to your standard personal protective equipment, hard hat, safety glasses, and steel-toe boots, you'll need some special protective equipment before contact to handle oil-based mud safely. Now that you've seen a little more about oil-based mud, let's try another question. True or false? Any type of gloves will provide protection against oil-based mud. The answer is false. Not all protective materials will shield you from the chemicals in oil-based mud. It is extremely important that you use impermeable gloves made of nitrile, neoprene, or some equivalent. Never use cloth or leather gloves. Essential personal protective equipment includes chemical splash goggles, impermeable clothing, such as Tyvek disposable coveralls in warm weather or slicker suits in cold weather. Impermeable gloves made of nitrile, neoprene, or some equivalent. Impermeable boots made of nitrile, neoprene, urethane, vinyl, or some equivalent. And a NIOSH-approved P95 particulate mask for protection against dust, mist, or aerosol. At high flow line temperatures, a NIOSH MSHA-approved organic vapor respirator may also be required. Of course, all of this equipment is not needed for all jobs. Select the PPE that's right for the job you're doing. Also, higher levels of protection may be required while mixing certain mud additives. Check the MSDS for more information. Based on your own experience or something you've read, what do you think is the most commonly reported health problem caused by handling oil-based mud? A. Respiratory ailments. B. Dermatitis or skin irritation. C. Eye irritation. Or D. None of the above. The answer is B. Dermatitis or skin irritation. Dermatitis or skin irritation is the most commonly reported work-related health problem in all industries. Handling oil-based mud in the drilling industry is no exception. If left untreated, minor skin irritation can result in intense itching and blisters, which are susceptible to infection. The following three-step program is designed to prevent dermatitis and relieve minor skin irritation when handling oil-based mud. Step 1. Barrier creams are lotions that form an invisible barrier on the skin to repel chemicals. Before contact with oil-based mud, apply a barrier cream to areas that are difficult to cover with protective equipment, such as face, hands, and forearms. Use a barrier cream that is designed to protect against oil-based or solvent hazards. Barrier cream should be applied to clean, dry skin and should be reapplied periodically during the workday, especially after washing. Apply barrier creams according to the manufacturer's recommendations. Barrier creams can be effective when properly used. However, they should not be used as a substitute for protective gear and clothing, but rather as an added measure of protection. After contact, good personal hygiene is essential as step 2. Clean mud off of your skin as soon as possible after contact. Use only appropriate soap designed to remove oil or grease from the skin, such as waterless soap preparations used by mechanics. Do not use diesel oil or industrial detergents, such as rig wash, to clean your skin. This can compound the exposure problem and lead to serious skin irritation. If mud penetrates through your PPE or clothes, change them and clean them up as soon as possible. After work, shower thoroughly. When returning to work, always wear clean clothes. If you're using barrier cream, remember that it must be reapplied after washing. Contact with the mud and frequent washing can remove the natural oils from your skin. This brings us to step 3. At the end of the workday, it is important to apply a reconditioning skin lotion to replace your skin's moisture and natural oils. This will help to prevent chafed or cracked skin, which can become infected. When minor skin irritation occurs, report it to your supervisor and the rig medic to get treatment. Don't let skin irritation go unreported and untreated. If left untreated, a minor rash can quickly develop into a serious problem. Minor skin irritations can be treated effectively with over-the-counter preparations such as hydrocortisone cream. Oil-based mud can be difficult to remove from your clothes. If your work clothing is not properly laundered, mud residue in the material can cause skin irritation the next time you wear the clothing. So make sure your work clothes are clean before wearing them. For clothing that is heavily soiled with oil-based mud, this will require special laundering procedures. Don't overload the washers. You need a lot more hot water and detergent than mud in the washer in order to clean effectively. And you need plenty of room for the water detergent mixture to circulate around the dirty clothes. Designate a washer for washing only muddy clothes. Clothes not soiled with oil-based mud should be washed in a separate washer. The washer used for muddy clothes should be cleaned periodically by running a wash cycle with hot water and detergent only, no clothes. Wash muddy clothes through at least 2 wash cycles using hot water and laundry detergent. Additional cycles may be necessary for extremely muddy clothes. If repeated washing is not possible or practical, pre-soak muddy clothes 1 to 2 hours in a laundry detergent solution before laundering. This can be done in a container such as a clean 55-gallon drum or large plastic trash can. Workers who handle muddy clothes need to remember that clothes soiled with oil-based mud can be just as hazardous as handling the mud itself. They should observe all of the precautions outlined in this video. Thank you for taking the time to learn these important health and safety procedures. Remember, oil-based mud is potentially hazardous to your health, so be sure to observe these important precautions whenever you're working around it. Avoid contact with the mud. Wear the recommended personal protective equipment. Use good personal hygiene. Practice good skin care. And launder clothing properly. Remember, always report health problems promptly and get treatment if necessary.